Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports Soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's segment, we've got an NWSL Regular Season Preview. Weekend 1 is here. Before we dive into all that, a quick reminder to follow us on Twitter for all news and updates at Attacking Third. We also have a TikTok and Instagram now, so follow us across all three platforms at Attacking Third for highlights, cool graphics, breaking news, and so much more. You can also watch us as video on youtube.com/attacking third. If you're joining us live, welcome. Let us know how you feel about opening weekend in the chat. And let's dive in. Lisa, how you doing today, buddy?
Sandra, I'm so good. We're going live. We get to preview the 10th season of the NWSL, the 10th year of the NWSL. We're going to clarify that one. It's the 10th year. But we have games. It's very exciting. Very pumped about this. In terms of non-soccer, which is our whole world, so I love the soccer, but Philadelphia 76ers, you got game 6 tonight against the Raptors. Let's go, Joel Embiid. Can you just win this for us?
Look, I'm going to be sending you the good vibes as well. Bulls are officially out, but listen, hey, we didn't get swept. I appreciate that. Love to not be swept out of the playoffs. Congrats to the Bulls on winning one game. But I'm look, it's East Coast, Eastern Conference all the way. So I'm hoping that my friend's team wins. So shout out to your Sixers.
Heck yeah. Sure. And we have the NFL draft tonight. So there's just a lot on the line in the sports world right now.
Yeah, there's a ton happening around the sports world. But for us here at Attacking Third, we love talking about soccer. We love talking about NWSL. Shout out to the FAWSL. There's a game going on right now. Bethany England opening up the scoring already for Chelsea against Tottenham. So shout out to Chelsea Blues getting the start early there. And I can't wait for this upcoming summer because we're probably going to have even more FAWSL content to talk about. But right now on the horizon, it is literally around the corner. NWSL regular season starts this weekend. And that's not the only NWSL action that's going to be taking place over the course of the next coming weeks. But we got to talk a little bit about how NWSL is going to look, at least over the next couple weeks, a little bit. Fans, if you aren't aware already, you can watch NWSL matches on Paramount Plus. We're going to go through the docket of matches this weekend and let you know where you can find the games as well. But the regular season is kicking off on Friday. NWSL Challenge Cup semifinals will be kicking off on May 4th, and NWSL Challenge Cup final will be kicking off on May 7th. We have an additional update on the Challenge Cup as well. The semifinal match between Oil Reign and Washington Spirit, which was once upon a time supposed to be held by the number 1 seeded Oil Reign, ended up getting moved to the DC area to be played at Segra Field, but now it is actually going to be held at Audi Field. So congratulations to the update on the semifinal logistics there. Let's hop into some regular season fixtures here, though, because we're going to talk about Oil Reign and Washington Spirit across regular season, not just Challenge Cup as well. Here are the games for the docket. You all ready for this? Angel City FC versus North Carolina Courage is going to be kicking off on Friday the 29th, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Portland Thorns versus Kansas City Currents going to be on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Chicago Red Stars versus Racing Louisville FC, Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Washington Spirit versus Oil Reign on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern. Orlando Pride versus Gotham FC, Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Houston Dash versus San Diego Wave FC, Sunday, Eastern time. We're going to be going through each of these games for y'all, letting you know our picks, of course, because we like to talk about that as well. Let's take a look at maybe some of the biggest games of the weekend, ones that Lisa and I are going to keep a very special close eye on. Angel City versus North Carolina Courage. You all can find that one on CBS Sports Network. Lisa, Angel City hosting a bank, hosting at the bank. It's going to be a little bit of a different vibe in this one. What are you feeling out of this match and why?
This is a huge game for so many different reasons. The 10th year in the NWSL, expansion side, Angel City getting to host at Bank of California Arena. I believe that's what it's called, for the very first time against a team in North Carolina Courage that throughout this Challenge Cup has done extremely well on their run to the top of the East standings and making their way throughout the Challenge Cup and going forward into the semifinals. But Angel City hosting this, it's a nightcap game, 10:30 Eastern. It's on big CBS. So we've got the superstars covering it that we love to see. I know Marissa Pilla and Lori Lindsay, they flew out of Philly this morning to make their way to LA to cover this one. This is the first huge test for Angel City on the marketing side of things, right? There's been so much, I'm going to call it hoopla, leading up to this, because the announcement of the team, the investors that they've got behind their brand, playing at Bank of California Stadium, playing against North Carolina Courage, playing at home with Christian Press. There's a lot riding on this. There's been tickets that have been sold for this game for weeks and months, and it's the culmination of all of this happening. When you look at the soccer aspect of it, that has to come into play, but there's so much off the pitch that also comes into this, because North Carolina is a team that is now going into this type of environment that the people of LA and the people of California are so hyped for this match that it is changing the tide for this game, honestly. So when we look into the soccer of it a little bit, Angel City, I'm hoping they can ride the momentum that they had ending their Challenge Cup run. They got their very first win over Portland Thorns, but defensively, Angel City has not been sound. They conceded 13 goals throughout the Challenge Cup. That was tied for the most out of any team in the Challenge Cup. North Carolina, they were a very hot team in the Challenge Cup. They're fighting in the playoffs. They have a semifinal match on Wednesday, and then they're hoping to play in the Cup final on Saturday. So this is one of the biggest things we have to talk about this weekend, because 4 of these NWSL teams are still competing in the Challenge Cup playoffs. And how do coaches manage player minutes and restrictions and making sure they can secure 3 points for the regular season, which means so much, but also continue their Challenge Cup run. If you've made it this far, you want to go all the way and win the cup. This is going to be a very open game. North Carolina has proven that they can score. They're averaging 2 goals a game throughout the Challenge Cup, and Angel City defensively, they're not that sound. So I think North Carolina is going to bring it. They're going to ride this wave that they've come off of in the Challenge Cup, but we need big players to step up for both of these sides, because all eyes are going to be on this game completely. Christian Press needs to get a goal in the run of play for Angel City. Can you imagine that arena and that stadium if that happens?
Listen, can I imagine it? Yes. But does that mean I still want to literally see it in front of my face happening? 100%. When I'm looking at this one, I hear you on all that. Certain players got to step on up on each side of the pitch here. I'm also looking at North Carolina Courage, because they've got a semifinal in the Challenge Cup on the horizon. After this, we're recording this. We're live with our homies here and talking about it. So we're doing this ahead of, getting, availability reports, getting a look at a fresh, IR in terms of who's available, who's not, who might be held or who might not be withheld. When I'm thinking about picks in this one, Lisa, I don't know though. I'm struggling in this one. I don't know if there's going to be a full-on winner, full-on loser. I'm a little bit curious if maybe Angel City is going to be motivated by their final performance there, which it's kind of felt like finally a full 90-minute performance from this team with the personnel that they had out on the pitch. But unsure about the status of Simone Charlie and what that's going to look like there, because the attack was looking really nice when we saw some really good interchange between, Charlie, Press, McCaskill getting into the mix as well. June Endo really kind of thriving as well alongside the, that other duo there. So I'm a little bit curious. I feel somewhere where I think maybe I want to say this is going to be a draw in some sense, but I think, I'm going to go bold here and say that maybe Angel City shock some folks and get a win against North Carolina.
I'm inking that in my notebook. I like that. I think this game is going to be really telling of what we're going to see from Angel City for the rest of the year. I just think that the momentum that North Carolina has right now, with Caroline getting her first start, playing significant minutes, her partnership with Dabinia for North Carolina, the play that North Carolina has done and the competition that they've faced in their East region throughout the Challenge Cup has been tough competition against Washington Spirit, who also finds themselves in the Challenge Cup postseason. I give the win to North Carolina. I think they're going to take this one, but I want goals from both sides of these
Yeah.
teams, honestly.
I feel you 100%. I think you're looking at North Carolina, and I'm with you. I felt a little bit more secure in being like, yeah, like it's going to be North Carolina, and I'm you know us, we're ready to come on here and always talk about how we're wrong, and so I'm ready to be proven wrong if North Carolina comes out and does what they do. I don't think I've chosen against North Carolina to date in this one, but we'll have to go back and double check that. But I would love to see some wild scenes out of Angel City, and hopefully the person on the pitch can deliver on this day. Let's take a look at another match that we're considering as one of the biggest matches of the weekend. We are going to be keeping an absolute close eye on Washington Spirit versus OL Reign. They will be kicking off their regular season on May 1st. Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern in Audi Field. And then on the horizon is going to be their semifinal matchup for Challenge Cup. So there were a lot of moving parts leading up to this weekend. And ultimately, when we had chatted a little bit about the dilemma in one of our previous episodes during our news and notes segment, when the match was initially slated for Segra Field, part of maybe that very small kind of glass half full perspective was that despite OL Reign being the number one Challenge Cup semifinal seed, they were unable to have an appropriate facility to host and in their home field. So the next thing was to look elsewhere. And then unfortunately, they're going to be on the road. And so maybe the silver lining within this was like, since they're already going to be playing a regular season fixture against each other, why not just stay in the same region to save a little bit of travel on the body? So this regular season match is going to be kicking off the official regular season for both of these teams at Audi Field, and then they will be staying in the area for their semifinal match on May 4th. When we're looking at just the regular season, though, Lisa, it's hard to maybe break away and say that these two teams are preparing differently for different types of scenarios, because I think if you're players on either side of the team here and you're looking at the schedule ahead of you, you want to win this game. And quite frankly, these I think are the two heavy hitters that so many of us have our eyes on during 2022. Washington Spirit are the reigning 2021 NWSL champions, and you got OL Reign just racking up results. It's going to be a good one. Who do you got in this one and why?
This is my biggest game to watch out of all weekend, perhaps throughout the Challenge Cup, because as you mentioned, they play this weekend on Sunday and then they play again on Wednesday. That's a very quick turnaround, especially to play against the exact same opponent. So I'm going to take a little trip down memory lane here just to refresh everyone's memories about these two sides. Washington Spirit are unbeaten in their last 18 games in all competitions. Now, there were 2 forfeit losses in that span, but I'm going to overlook those. And this is all under Chris Ward as well, the acting head coach from 2021, who is now the head coach of OL Reign. The last 3 times these two teams have played, Washington has swept 3 straight wins against OL Reign, including a 2-1 road win in last season's NWSL playoff. So recent history, Washington Spirit has the upper hand over OL Reign. Ashley Hatch is coming off a brace in the last match that Spirit had against North Carolina Courage. Allie Watt also got on the scoreboard for OL Reign in their last match against San Diego. So we're starting to see different pieces come together. Specifically, when we look at this OL Reign side, Allie Watt getting a goal, that's huge. A player that has been technically in the league for a while, suffered some injuries, and this is a huge year for Allie Watt to see if she can make a big impact, not only with the team, but also with OL Reign and her play in the NWSL. Getting that first goal is off to a huge start. There's so much that it's so hard to separate between the Challenge Cup semifinal and this regular season game. You said it, though. Both teams want to get a win. I think the energy that we've seen from Washington Spirit has just grown and grown and grown. They snuck away with a tie against North Carolina in their last match. But going up against OL Reign, they're playing at home at Audi Field. They don't have to travel. They get to sleep in their own beds. I think the off the field factors play so much into this. OL Reign supposedly well, not supposedly being the number one in the Challenge Cup, but not being able to host, that plays a factor in this. I honestly am going to go with the draw in this match between Washington and OL Reign.
Music to my ears, but let me tell you why. Because the reason why I didn't want to go maybe like draw in that first biggest match pick that we made was because I'm saving my draw for this one. I'm looking at these two teams, and I just think that they match up against each other incredibly well. And while I want to see a really strong match, opening weekend match for the regular season between these two sides, I just think that they are keeping in consideration the week ahead that they have in front of them. And the fact that there's a Challenge Cup semifinal that will be taking place between the two of them as well. I'm not saying that they want to maybe hold the cards or not show as much, but this is early. This is still very, very early scenes for many of these teams. We've heard a lot from players and coaches throughout Challenge Cup that the fact of the matter is Challenge Cup coming out of a preseason and then placed in front of a regular season still has a little bit of that concept in your brain of a bit of a preseason-y vibe in terms of the tournament that it is. So these are still beginning stages and early stages for teams to kind of iron out the things that they want to iron out and sort of forming and their identities moving forward for 2022. So while I'm excited for this matchup, I really do think it might check out in the draw. I'm hopeful that it might be a little bit of a shootout, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe it could be narrow as well.
I'm hoping for a shootout in this one too. As people in our chat are reminding me and reminiscing, I love it. If you're in the chat, drop your predictions. Let us know who you have for all of these matches. But Washington has conceded a lot of goals first throughout this Challenge Cup. And against a team like OL Reign, who scored 3 goals in 14 minutes a few weeks ago, OL Reign comes out really strong. So I would not be surprised if at halftime, OL Reign is winning 2-0 even. That's a pretty big margin. I honestly see that, but I still see a draw at the end of it.
How we do this? You want we both want the shootout. You're giving really good arguments for kind of a goal fest of a draw. So I'm gonna give you like the multi-goal draw. I'm gonna stay with the draw, but I'll go like narrow draw. So we'll see. We'll try to like put a different angle and spin on it as well. So we got to do the recap and maybe talk about it. We'll see what was going on. But watch because we chose a draw. It's gonna be like a completely different turnout. Watch us put the jinx on it and see what happened. But there's something about these two teams, I think, going up together. I don't know if folks watching, if maybe they look at these two teams and think this right here is a rivalry, but I like the history between these two sides. I mean, we've got some history between them going back way back in the beginning stages of NWSL. This is when they do meet head to head in the Challenge Cup. It's not going to be the first time that they've met in a kind of a semi-final experience. And this Washington Spirit side ended OL Reign's impressive second half season run just last year. And I'm sure that is fresh in the franchise's mind as well. And the team were disappointed to not be able to move further into the playoffs there, especially as they had home field advantage. So home field advantage is not something that's necessarily been this type of X factor, like game changing kind of thing for the Reign when they've gone up to the Spirit before in the past. And I'm thinking about even in those early years of NWSL when there were semifinal playoffs and the Reign were eliminated or had to go face to face with the Spirit down the stretch of some things as well. So home field has not maybe always been the best scenario for OL Reign. So maybe that's something that's going to change as well. Maybe the concept of pressure on the local team might be there as well. So we'll see. There's a lot more to get into here, though. There's a ton of games we got to go through. We're going to give you picks for the remaining games of opening weekend right after a quick break.
Look, we want to make a movie.
Paramount is going to come crashing down. We need hits.
I got no cast.
No Pacino.
Brando.
He's a nutcase.
Can one thing go right with this picture?
This movie makes my people look like animals, and that ain't gonna happen.
I'm not running.
Let's talk about some matches that are going to be a true test. Portland Thorns FC versus Kansas City Current on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. You can find that on Twitch. Portland Thorns and Kansas City. KC winning the Central Division of the Challenge Cup. Portland falling just short of the Challenge Cup playoffs, will not be able to defend their 2021 Challenge Cup title. But these two teams getting a look at each other for the first time in regular season because of how division play shook out. A lot of these teams are going to be meeting each other for the first time. And similarly to Washington Spirit and OL Reign, we're going to see Portland Thorns and Kansas City get a first look at each other. When we're looking at this matchup here, though, Lisa, what are you looking at? And who do you think is going to walk away with a result in this one or not?
I do think there's going to be a result in this match, but this is another really good matchup. We called this section the true test section because we have not seen this current iteration of Portland Thorns with Reen Wilkinson and the squad that they've put out and the different formation that they're testing out throughout 2022. We haven't seen that against a team like KC Current under Matt Potter that's trying different things, that has a handful of rookies that are being really big impact players so far in the season. Kansas City Current, they came in with some heavy hitters in Lynn Williams, Sam Ewis, who we haven't seen. We won't see Williams anymore throughout the season, but we're unsure on this current status of Sam Ewis. With or without her, I don't even think it matters because Kansas City is a team that they won the Central Division in the Challenge Cup, essentially without Ewis. They were a team that finished at the bottom of the table in last season in 2021, and they just won the first little win that they could get, making it into the Challenge Cup postseason. This is a Kansas City team that knows how to play on both sides of the ball. They're a little bit scrappy. They can attack in a variety of ways, though, and they have a player in Kristen Hamilton that I'm going to circle and star that has taken on a lot of responsibility in the attacking end of the field for the Current. She knows what needs to be done to get the ball in the back of the net, and she's willing to do that and put her body on the line. And when you have a leader like that at Kansas City that has so many rookies around her in Elise Bennett, Alex Luera, Jenna Weinbrenner, the center backs, that is so important for how these rookies are going to enter their NWSL career. We're already seeing it from Elise Bennett, 2 assists out of the rookie in the Challenge Cup. She can be creative in the attack. And I think that having these rookies for Kansas City is helping them go against a team like Portland Thorns, who is an incredible powerhouse. But these rookies don't know that. They don't care about that. They're just out there to play football, have fun, score some goals in this regular season. But this matchup, Portland's coming off a loss. They're falling short in the Challenge Cup. They're coming off that loss to Angel City. This matchup is a big one. Now, you asked me, who do I have winning, or even do I have anyone winning? I think this one is going to be really narrow. I think the goalkeeper battle in this match between A.D. Franch for Kansas City Current and Bella Bigsby for Portland Thorns is going to be a really big battle. These players are going to step up. Their teams are going to rely on them. However, because of that, and Portland coming off their loss to Angel City, I'm giving this win to Portland. And I won't be mad if we come back on this podcast on Sunday and Kansas City ends up winning. But I'm going to give the win to Portland right now.
Listen, I'm high on Kansas City Current. I'm absolutely loving what they're doing this season so far. The little bit that we've seen from them, I'm high on Elise Bennett. I think the rookie has been incredibly impressive during this Challenge Cup, being asked to come in light of losing such a big piece like Lynn Williams, and she's playing fearlessly and with confidence, and I love to see that out of a rookie. However, like you said, there's a number of factors that are going in to play into this match. Kansas City is the team that advanced to their semifinals in the Challenge Cup. They've got a quick turnaround when you're looking at how their soccer is laid out in front of them. They've got this game away on the road at Providence Park in Portland, Oregon, and then they have got to host their Challenge Cup semifinal in Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park right on May 4th. So you're talking about a couple games over the course of 4 days. It's also going to come down to who's actually available. I mean, we saw in that final match for Portland, and unfortunately, they were dealing with a string of COVID protocols that they had to follow. Number of players were out. But there was also the recent co-ed soccer game that they had in support for Ukraine, which was a lot of fun that they had streaming on their website to take a look at. So there's likely going to be a different type of a roster available to select from by head coach Ryan Wilkinson in this one, which is why I'm going with the home side in this one as well. As much as I would love to see Kansas City go out on the road and snatch up a win, which I believe they're capable of, I just think they're going to be going up against a Portland Thorns side that is going to be looking a little bit different than they did in their final game of the Challenge Cup. So I'm eager to see the head-to-head in this one, but I'm going to be going with the home side. But I do think it's going to be a narrow win.
I do too. I like that you're going with Portland in this one. And you mentioned it. They were missing a number of players, even their head coach in their last match against Angel City. And Sophia Smith, a player that was out due to COVID protocol, she's chomping at the bit to get back on the field. And because those players were forced to sit out due to COVID protocol, that's like giving them the extra edge at this home match against Kansas City. But we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. Love to come back on here and talk about how we were right or wrong. Let's move on for another true test. We're going to be taking a look at Houston Dash versus San Diego Wave FC. That match is taking place on Sunday as well, 7 p.m. Eastern on Paramount Plus. Houston Dash finishing last in the central region of the Challenge Cup standings, and San Diego Wave ending their Challenge Cup play with 1 win, 2 draws, and 3 losses. But really promising on the offensive side of things, scoring 9 goals. They're in the top half of the teams with the goals that they ended up scoring through the Challenge Cup. Lisa, you've been high on San Diego Wave since the jumps they started forming their team together. I've been impressed with how they closed out their Challenge Cup, and we're looking at a Houston Dash side that unfortunately is now coming into their regular season off of maybe a little bit of a disappointing Challenge Cup, finishing last in that category of the central region. And now they're also unfortunately dealing with some off of the field issues as well, recently announcing the suspension of their head coach and general manager, James Clarkson, due to the ongoing joint team investigation across NWSL that has been taking place since October of 2021. So a number of different things coming into play when we're looking at these two teams going head to head. When we're looking at the end result in this one, Lisa, the soccer aspect of it, are you choosing a team to win, lose, or draw in this one, and why?
I choose San Diego Wave FC to win over Houston in this match. This is the first time San Diego will be playing out of their West Coast, their comfortability home, and Houston gets to host a California squad for the very first time. When we really have to look at for San Diego, we have to look at the Challenge Cup and what they were able to do throughout that. They've scored and allowed at least 1 goal in all 3 of their road games as an NWSL club. They're the only team to allow more goals in away matches in the Challenge Cup than San Diego. So interesting to kind of look at certain stats like that. I think that San Diego has a lot to prove. That's why this is a true test for these two squads. Then when we look at Houston, going through a lot of emotional, mental stuff off the pitch in losing their head coach and the players having to go through this as well, and then have to go and play a game. When we look at on the pitch what they've been able to do, I think Maria Sanchez is a player that can make a very big difference for this Houston Dash team. We've seen it slightly. She has 3 assists throughout the Challenge Cup. No other Houston player even has an assist. So she's the only one to have recorded assists. And she was the only player with 100% of her team's assists. And because of that and her contributions in the attack, that's one thing that she is known for: getting crosses in, whipping the balls in, being dangerous, going 1v1 at defenders. I don't think it's enough for Houston. And I don't think Ashley Sanchez can do all of it. Or excuse me, Maria Sanchez can do all of it for this Houston Dash team. Because of that, I think San Diego is excited to get on the road, face some different competition out of the Challenge Cup. I am giving San Diego the nod in this win.
I'm with you 100%. on this one. Listen, Houston Dash was a team that we were taking a look at during the Challenge Cup. And when we would go through our previews and recaps of games, or even when we were laying out the power rankings and going through that, this was just a team that we just couldn't really see kind of crack through that top 4 or top 6, even when we're just talking about general power rankings, which is just sort of based on a lot of, thoughts and opinions and to stats and data and eye test, right? But when we're looking now ahead of this regular season, putting some numbers attached to some of these, the eye test and the feelings and the opinions that we had about this. I mean, you can look at this Houston Dash side and point out and look across the roster and say, yeah, sure, there are some bright spots here across this pool of players, some strong individual pieces. And of course, we've been highlighting Maria Sanchez because she really is probably the breakout player for this Houston Dash side. When we're talking about the Challenge Cup that they had, there was literally a game where we can point to their big come from behind win and say that happened because a player like her took over the game. So that's just not enough. Like you said, I mean, this it can the difference sometimes be that one kind of player doing a madness on the pitch and kind of turning the momentum for a team? Absolutely, 100%. We've seen it happen in this league and across the game, but I'm just not sure that it's going to be enough when you're going up against this San Diego Wave FC side. We were also looking for certain teams and a little bit of growth throughout this Challenge Cup, because we're looking at how they started from their week 1, closing out their group matches. And even though during that final match week, there were teams that were already eliminated from Challenge Cup semifinal contention, we still wanted to see some type of, strong performances. And I think what we saw out of San Diego towards the later stages of their Challenge Cup, I think has a little bit more meat on the bones in terms of building upon that for the regular season. Casey Stoney, I think, is someone that we can include in that as the head coach of the Wave, to be able to take a look and really get a close eye on what it means to coach in the NWSL and the type of transitional play that occurs here in this league. And I think that she had 6 matches along with her roster to say, okay, here's what we got, let's go. And I think them going on the road to Houston, they're not going to maybe be intimidated by something like, playing in warmer weather or heat or things like that. So I'm looking at San Diego Wave in this one as well, and I'm expecting them to pick up a win in this one. Let's take a look at the competition as it continues. There are 2 more matches that we've got to go through and give you all some picks. Chicago Red Stars versus Racing Louisville FC is going to take place on Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that on Paramount Plus. Look, both of these teams at this point, I think, have a lot of familiarity with each other. We're talking about 2 teams that will now have played each other 3 times in just the course of a month. Was on some media availability with the Chicago Red Stars today. Got to chat a little bit with head coach Chris Petroselli, and he alluded to that as maybe being a little bit of a challenge in terms of team preparation this week for a regular season. So while there's general disappointment among the Red Stars team that they fell just a little bit short of advancing to a spot in the Challenge Cup semifinals, there was renewed enthusiasm about preparing for a regular season, but there was right back to that little bit of a mental grind in that actually we're preparing for this regular season, and this first game is going to be the 3rd time we face this team in less than a month. So it maybe is presenting some interesting challenges for both of these teams going into the regular season. All that being said, these Red Stars are still looking for a win against this Racing Louisville franchise. And Racing Louisville has made it very, very hard for the Red Stars to go ahead and get that officially against them. But Racing has had a win before the Red Stars in the past. When we're looking at this one, Chicago's the host. Lisa, who are you looking at to have an impact in this game? And do you think someone's going to come out on the other side of a win or a loss here definitively?
So before I dive into this, I want to ask you, because you did join the Chris Petroselli Chicago media availability, updates on statuses of availability of players. Mallory Pugh's been out,
absolutely.
concussion protocol, Morgan Gautrat, another player. Any updates you can share with the class?
Yeah, absolutely. I did ask I did ask Chris Petroselli in terms of the personnel who,
Before I make my picks, I want to know.
you wanted, yeah, actually,
detail.
that's the one thing we need to know, right? I think a lot of people are looking at that as well. But while there's nothing official yet in terms of an availability report, in terms of that preparation that the team has been going through this week, Petroselli did say that Mallory Pugh was participating in very limited things with the team throughout trainings. She was someone who was placed on concussion protocol out of that penultimate game of the Challenge Cup. So she was unavailable for that very last Challenge Cup game against Kansas City Currents, and there is no official status yet of her availability come game day on this opening weekend for regular season. But the positives there are that she is participating in some very small and minor team practice things throughout the week. Morgan Traw, on the other hand, is a little bit further away. He mentioned her time this week in preparation has mostly been with the physical trainers and the PT side of things in terms of trying to get back to full fitness. So, I mean, these are two big pieces for the Red Stars here, Lisa. So it's looking and sounding perhaps as if somebody like Mallory Pugh could be more of a game day decision. But I think what was most impressive coming out of some of this Red Stars media availability was getting able to also chat with players like Ella Stevens, players like Amanda Kowalski, and they are of the mindset of just continuing to trust their process and the belief in the shape that they've been coming out in terms of their style of play. So while the personnel might change a little bit or have to, adjustments might have to be made there, they're committed to how they're playing this year so far. So that's kind of the energy that was coming out from either the coaching side or the player side of this media availability.
So questionable on Pugh, most likely no on Morgan Gautral, but one player that is there will be playing Alyssa Nair, goalkeeper for the Red Stars. Yep. And that is a huge, huge piece for Chicago because the last time Chicago came out, Alyssa Nair had a tremendous, tremendous game. So looking at the Challenge Cup, late in March, these two teams, Chicago and Racing Louisville, came to a 0-0 draw. In the end of April, the last time they played, 1-1, a goal from Amanda Kowalski, and then a set piece goal from Amina Ekic. So these teams aren't necessarily scoring a lot. They're not. And that is something that is concerning to me, especially when players like Morgan Gautral are out for Chicago and Mallory Pugh most likely won't play. I'm going to say that for this weekend based on her head and kind of how she's doing. Of course, I have no insight into that, but it's a long season. You don't want her to get into this concussion cycle where you play one game and then you're out again. Yeah. Because of that, this game could look a lot different. I almost want to say it's going to be a 0-0 draw, but ultimately I'm going to give the win to Racing Louisville. I think that Racing Louisville wants to beat Chicago because of the history that these two sides have had. Chicago has never scored a goal against Racing Louisville at home. And that's something that Racing Louisville wants to continue. I think Jess McDonald is a player that can change things for Racing Louisville against a Chicago side. Emily Fox defensively, this is her time to step up. This could be a really big year of growth for Emily Fox, not only with Racing Louisville, but with the national team. And it starts this weekend in the regular season. So I'm not going to go with the draw because I already gave a draw up in my predictions. I am going to give this win to Racing Louisville.
Look, I'm going to be going with the home side in this one. I don't want to see another draw in this one because these two teams have been played out to a couple draws already. I want to see somebody come out here and take control of this game. Another thing that just keeps looming in the back of my mind, and maybe it's the local in me, but Chicago is hosting this first opening weekend match for the regular season. And there have been some weather that has happened in some of these matches over the course of the Challenge Cup when they hosted a few games there that have come into play. And both teams have to play in it. And I think that the game between Chicago and Racing was a really good example of maybe how weather can affect both sides of the pitch, no matter who is actually hosting the game. The weather doesn't look like it's going to be super bright and sunny and clear and perfect soccer weather, although we'll have to keep an eye on it. So I'm going to say that Chicago might have a little more experience in navigating some of the flora and the fauna of SeatGeek Stadium. So I am going to go with a win for Chicago instead. I like that you and I are of the same energy here, that we want to see a win. We want to see a result. I think at this point between these two franchises, we might almost take it either way. Hopefully we see them play out to a certain result. We'll see what happens. Final match for us to get through, Orlando Pride versus Gotham FC, 7 p.m. on Sunday. You can also catch that on Paramount Plus. I think we got to just call a duck if it quacks, right? If it quacks, it's a duck. And we're looking at these two teams, Lisa, coming out of the East region of the Challenge Cup. And I know you're cracking up about it already, but we saw these two teams in the East region of Challenge Cup struggle a little bit. And it sort of felt like we were coming on here week in, week out, talking a bit about that and wanting to see more from Gotham FC and wanting to see a little bit of what this rebuild was going to look like for the Pride moving forward. And unfortunately, Challenge Cup just really didn't give a lot of data there for us. When we're looking at the Pride, it looks like they're exiting their Challenge Cup, unfortunately missing several key players. They had to say farewell to Marta, who's out with a season-ending knee injury. Sydney LaRue has been navigating an injury of her own. Aaron McLeod is navigating and rehabbing from a knee injury as well, expected somewhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So a number of key players out for the Pride. But when we're looking at this Gotham side, we've constantly felt that there's a healthy chunk of talent there, that we want to see this team build off of what they did last year in 2021 and their first playoff appearance as newly branded Gotham FC. When we're looking at these two teams go head to head once more, Lisa, do you think we're going to get a different result here between these two teams than we saw in their final Challenge Cup game?
I don't. Honestly, I don't. If anything, I'll give a little bit of a tilt to Orlando Pride in this match. Gotham has struggled. They are a struggling squad that even dates back to the end of 2021. Gotham has scored 1 goal in each of its last 5 matches, and they haven't scored multiple goals in any of their last 10 matches across all competitions. So scoring goals is very difficult for Gotham, a team, as you just said, Sandra, that has so much talent, so much attacking talent as well. They've got Ifeoma Onumano, Margaret Purse. They've got really good players. Naho Kawasumi, Christy Mewis now, who has scored for Gotham since arriving. However, both of her goals have come from the penalty spot. No goals for Mewis in the run of play. Not a huge impact player from Christy Mewis. I want to shake Gotham a little bit and be like, wake up. What are you doing?
What's going on? Yeah.
It's the regular season. It's time to show up. And we'll see if they do this weekend. However, I think that because the expectations for Gotham to be so much better than they are on that team, and they can feel those expectations. They know that they are not performing as well as they could be, they should be, and as well as they want to be. Whereas Orlando is a team that, coming into this season, even the Challenge Cup, we've known that they were going to struggle a little bit. And then losing big players like Marta, Sydney LaRue being on limited minutes, having a brand new coach to the professional game in Amanda Cromwell. There's a lot of moving parts for Orlando that there wasn't a lot of pressure on them to do well, which allows them to play a little bit freer, especially against a team like Gotham. So they just played them. They're coming back into this match. I see this as a draw, frankly. If anything, I'll give Orlando a little bit of a lean towards them, a little bit of a tilt towards them. But otherwise, I go draw in this match.
Does something like a home field advantage for Orlando, do you think that might be something that comes into play with this one, or not? Because again, we're kind of seeing a little bit of a repeat of the closeout of Challenge Cup for those two.
I don't think it's a huge factor for Gotham. Maybe for Orlando, it gives them a little bit more of a boost, but Exploria Stadium isn't that difficult of a place to go into for a team like Gotham to travel there and to go into that stadium. It's not that hostile. It's not anything like Providence Park, which is one of the most difficult places to play in the world in the NWSL, of course. However, for Orlando, it might give them a bit of a boost knowing they have their supporters there, being comfortable with the humidity and the heat that's in Orlando. But perhaps it gives them that little bit of an edge. Honestly, I think the edge for Orlando comes from just not having a lot of pressure to be the best in the league right now.
Yeah, I'm with you too on in terms of the attack for Gotham and what we're looking at there or lack of. You know, the pieces that they have there, the ones that they had from last year, whether it's an Anamano or a Purse or a Monahan, and then looking at the addition of Mewis and wanting to see a little bit more interchange between that kind of cluster that we're seeing from Gotham to just try to produce a little bit more. It's almost like we're seeing the action, but we're not seeing the end results. I mean, we're looking at someone like Purse, who's, yes, second on the team right now in terms of total shots. But when you're looking at her on target percentage, 18%, it's questionable at best. You're talking about this, so the questionable shot selection just not matching up, and perhaps it's a bit of, like I was talking about earlier, you know, the fact that this is the early stage of the season. Maybe it's still shaking off some of the preseason rust. Perhaps it's getting, you know, re-familiar with the team after having a little bit of an off season, etc. But you know, we have said it kind of week in and week out. We want to see more from these players because of what they were producing last year. It was very exciting, and it sort of felt like the real beginnings of something. And now we're just sort of seeing it kind of still trying to maybe it's taken a little bit of a plateau. I won't say it's taken a huge dip, but it's definitely flatlined a little bit. We're talking about an attack from Gotham that was second in total goal productions over the course of Challenge Cup. There just wasn't a lot there. So hopefully we get to see a little bit of a different energy from this team going into regular season. And I'm going to throw a pick behind it. I'm going to say that Gotham walks away with the win in this one. They want to start off their regular season and forget about the Challenge Cup that they just had and start taking the long grind of a regular season into another playoff push. So hopefully we get to come on back here and talk about the match and how that shook out. Thanks, everybody. That's all we got for you. We went through all of the games. We appreciate you joining us as always whenever we go live and listening to us here on Attacking Third. You can follow us on Twitter and now on TikTok and Instagram at Attacking Third for so much more. All breaking news, all kinds of videos, all kinds of highlights. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you listen to your podcast shows. We're also available as videos. Subscribe at youtube.com/Attacking Third. If you do have any questions for us, because we always see everybody throwing around kind of questions in the live, but the way to get it answered is you got to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with your question, and Lisa and I will answer it during a mailbag segment. So head on over to Apple Podcasts with a 5-star review and your question, and we'll answer it. And Lisa and I will be back Sunday with a recap of the opening weekend for NWSL regular season. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.